So first of all, thank you very much for your time. I know it's tough during this summer afternoon to spend painful minutes, actually in our case almost an hour, in a crowded room. And me and Stan, we really appreciate it. I have a couple of good news. First, the mic doesn't mean that I'm insane or vain. It barely means that I need to communicate with Stan. That's the reason why I'm using the microphone, so that he can hear me. Unfortunately, he cannot be with us here today. But I'm sure there will be plenty of opportunities to stay in touch and to, listen to his presentation and learn about his work. Some of you might be familiar with already. He will, tell you more about his profession and his achievements, but he's been for many years involved in topic of innovation in the film industry, and he's involved with a Cannes festival, and more recently he's, let's say, the founding father of the village innovation, which was part of the market during the festival. And if I'm not mistaken, it was about 1,000 square meters presenting all of the tech companies such as Respeecher and other innovation platforms and tools that you might know as well. He is also the head of many MBA, as some of you may have heard this morning, focused on use of generative AI. And that's something that I personally find very interesting for two reasons. First, because as we know, it's important to get accustomed to the tools and at least to know what they can and cannot do. And also, secondly, in the EU, we will have the EU Act, and one of the articles of the EU Act describes something that can be summed up as mandatory education for people who work with AI tools, not only for developers but also for companies who, on whose behalf their employees or other somehow related people are working with tools, including generative AI. And this sort of education, AI literacy, does consist from technical aspect that should be customized based on their knowledge and their profession and their scope of work. But it might also include some ethical and legal considerations that should be taken into account, again, based on the nature of the tool. And we spoke with Stan that perhaps we could do it as a part discussion and part presentation this afternoon. So he will present you the, let's say, extended portion of his morning presentation with more examples, more details, and I also have a couple of questions for him. So this time we will do it the other way around, and we will begin with the questions. So if Stan is ready, I have first question, very naive and very eager. What are the most interesting takeaways from the village innovation? Because I don't think there is anything comparable to this in scale and size in the film industry and technological innovation.
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope you hear me well. Those who didn't see me this morning, my name is Sten Salover. I'm the head of Can Next, the innovation sidebar at the Marché de Film, which is the industry part or the industry market near Cannes. I also had the digital summit for the Prime Minister of Estonia. And actually, I'll show you later part of a consortium called KVIFF, which is a very unique team of academics, industry practitioners such as myself, and some festivals and organizations. And we collectively, through basically publishing market best insights into different types of industry markers, whether it's production, distribution, country profiles, financing, and of course AI, we're trying to kind of keep the European cinema mission afloat. And alive and kicking. I'm so sorry. I was very much looking forward to come to Karlovy Vary. Last time I was in Karlovy Vary was exactly 20 years ago. Well, it turns out to be that whilst we talk about AI, airplanes break down, and there was no way physically making into Karlovy Vary, although we were trying to find solutions the whole last night. So please bear with me remote, but you're very happy to contact me by any means. And as Veronica said, we're trying to make this as a more of an interactive session. So if you have any any questions or remarks, just please jump in and let's try to kind of spot them on the spot. Now, coming to village innovation point. So for those of you who weren't in Cannes, so village innovation was actually technically the largest undertaking towards promoting screen innovation in Cannes what we've ever done in our life. And there is some type of a misconception that even Cannes and some of these big A festivals that they somehow swim in resources and launching these big initiatives is very easy for them. No, of course it's not. And I guess I always say quite jokingly is that, Cannes is like any other festival or any other place, problems times 100. But one of the clear things what we have, what is really at the core of the Marché is we really don't want to talk about innovation because of innovation. Our job is to empower filmmakers like you or financiers or producers or decision makers. And our place is to, or our mission really is to help and provide these business networking, deal making, educational means in order for the industry to survive. And if it's 35 millimeter or if it was 35 millimeter prints, well, it was that. Now it's AI, and then obviously we need to basically focus and filter and put out things that we feel are empowering the industry. Now, what we really felt was that Europe and Europe as a continent generally lacked a kind of a response or a focused initiative that would kind of take that screen innovation into very sharp focus. Because, and we already started with a pilot last year. We had a great collaboration with Microsoft. And if you kind of, zoom back a year ago, the situation around with AI was extremely tense. I'm not saying that it's very easy right now. But remember, the Hollywood strikes had just finished, and much of the SAG strikes were really about AI, what the guidelines are, who's going to get paid, what the working standards and practices are, and we can come some of these things later in this talk or later today. So everything was very, very sensitive, and we understood that there was something going on with this technology, and it was very risky to bring this type of a very novel AI concept to Cannes. And so together with Microsoft, we created an AI cafe, and we were actually quite surprised to see how well it was received, both on the educational side, trying to build a dialogue, alleviate some of the fears. And out of that idea or pilot, we created Village Innovation, which was a 1,000 square meter venue, which had its virtual production and real-time and AI production stage, a kind of a focus area for some of the companies in the AI space, as Veronica said, Respeecher, but as well as Letterboxd, which is now turning from a kind of a film diary into a data company. Presentations by some of the leading AI filmmakers, such as Paul Trillo and Verena Poom, as well as all types of other workshops and so forth. And the whole idea was to give this subject matter a prominence really from a perspective of a use of independent filmmakers. And if you ask me, I just counted that we had 44 sessions with more than 70 speakers, and some of the bucket list of the takeaways, what I kind of wrote down regarding the village innovation was the following, that what we really see is that there's some type of a market maturation or preliminary market maturation around AI tools and AI workflows. So if a year ago or even 6 months ago, things were quite experimental, that we could get some results, whether they were 2 seconds or 4 seconds or and etc., then we now definitely see that if they're not exactly pro grade level, then definitely they are prosumer level, and AI workflows can already come and benefit filmmakers here and now. It's a little bit of a DV cam type of situation, if you remember what it was, right? Very clunky video camera in the 90s. The quality wasn't yet great, but some of the amazing films were done on this, including 28 Days Later or Dancer in the Dark or anything else. So this maturation has happened in a 6 month. And what was very surprising for me also to see was that there are already studios in the United States and also AI model providers, which are working on ethical, paid, and filmmaker-driven models. So this whole idea of somebody coming and vacuuming your work in your house is over because companies are starting to train their own models, and particularly, especially in animation and advertising, where their own proprietary work goes to serve their own needs. And I think that's a very, very interesting thing to say, let alone there will be models in about 6 to 12 months which can render ProRes and also broadcast quality material. So these technical limitations are being addressed pretty fast. Number one. Number two, the big encouragement for everyone in the whole is the fact that this is quite a nascent market. And this idea that it's only Google or Meta or OpenAI or some of the else that who have the monopoly here, it's not exactly true. And what I really found out, especially in the entertainment industry, is that I would say that it's not about technology, but it's finding a good use case or it's finding a good workflow. So everyone kind of talks to everyone, and the great independent player can actually team up with a major player, with a major technology provider. And hence all the big ones like Runway, Leonardo, and also Google's Vivo and etc. They have their artist residency programs where the artist can come and work with the tools and actually provide some significant creative input and also creative outcome. And I'll show you a couple of examples later. So we should not really be afraid about the big tech. There really is a certain type of a communication line, and I personally feel that we need to use it more actively because then we can shape the tools and then we can shape the dialogue rather than it being shaped for us. Number two. Number three, as what I also wanted to say is everyone learns, and I think right now we really there are some pioneers. And I think it's really a great time to pose a lot of questions and be very open about it. And it's really a collaborative learning environment where, again, more established players and more established doers are learning from kind of younger creatives and vice versa. And again, I'll come back. It's a bit of a TCP situation in 2008, where everyone kind of were trying to find their ways around the technology. And finally, and I'll stop my monologue around here, I think, and what I said also in the morning, it is not going to be one or another. So it's not like 100% AI native versus 100%, Alexa or 35 millimeter focused film. It's going to be hybrid or actually enhanced, where we see a lot of optimizations happening around. And these optimizations are pretty fast coming into especially into bigger studio environments as well. And it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation, but I tend to believe that since the market is contested anyway, especially for distribution and financing, whatever tools and whatever processes help the filmmakers to solve problems, either real time or faster, these AI enhancements will be very beneficial for everyone. And last but not least, what is also pretty surprising to see is that ultimately it's really the quality of the content that matters. Great AI films will be at the festivals and they will be distributed too. Crappy AI films will not be at the festivals and then they won't be distributed. So I think there's quite a healthy sense of pragmatism, optimism, and realism. And obviously, the one kind of a big caveat there, if I say two caveats, the number one caveat is that we're a little bit disadvantaged in Europe, not because of talent, but because of the uptake and education of basically trying to jump into this paradigm and making these tools work for us. And secondly, there is also the fact that since we are a bit distanced, sometimes it's quite hard to access those tools because they first roll out on bigger territories and maybe we are somewhere later at the queue. So that creates a bit of a disadvantage. And last but not least, we can talk about it as a separate question. I think what is very necessary, and Veronica, you also alluded it in the morning, is that no one will. Well, there are also let's say bad actors or actors whose intents are not so clearly visible, and whether these are countries and organizations on the other side of a political spectrum which primarily want to use technology for control, for espionage or for data access and so forth. And it's quite tempting for them to come into this game, and I say that they are very heavily already in this game, and you should quite clearly consider yourself what types of values or principles you have in place in order to address this. And that also relates to the point is this industry is moving so fast that waiting someone else to make a decision on it, whether it's you, whether it's your supervisor, whether it's your, Ministry of Culture, whether it's the European Commission or anyone else, it's not going to happen because by the time they make a decision, there's already a new technical innovation. So primarily, it's a blessing and a curse that we ourselves need to develop the values and principles how we are going to adapt this technology. And I think the SAG guideline that came out of last year is actually very helpful starters that we in Europe can learn from.
Okay, thank you very much, Stan. I will try to add a few quick remarks, hopefully practical and useful to this topic. You mentioned a lot of use cases coming up, and I see also a lot of use cases related to the new trend of ethical development, ethical use, ethical training. And that's where I believe might be some interesting space for professional filmmakers, because my experience is that some of the startups, while they have the technology and they have the idea, they sometimes lack the knowledge of either film industry or the craft and art of film, or let's say legal dimension, given the copyright and other legal aspects related to their brand new potential unicorn. So I think it would make sense if you have the opportunity to be in touch with technology sphere in the area of mainly generative AI to try to support development of, let's say, ethical and practical tools, because that's where everyone can benefit from. I also agree with Stan that what we see now is the new chapter of approach to AI. It's not that much of a witch hunt anymore. We are now trying to find solutions. It doesn't necessarily mean that we found them already, but unfortunately, in some cases of specific ethical or legal issues, it's much more visible now that the ship has unfortunately sailed, and there is only so much we can do now. As put it in a simple words, the internet has been scraped already. So what do we do now with the copyright issues, with the personality rights or the right of publicity, but also what we do with other problems that are much less visible yet important in the area of filmmaking, such as culture appropriation, or use of historic and culturally valuable yet not perhaps copyrighted content that is being used for training and then used as the generated output, put it in a different context or different narrative, which might also raise some questions. And now for the second questions, then, pardon my French, I'm going to talk about money. So,
oh yes, let's talk about money.
I know, let's talk about money. I'm sorry, we have to. So we see that this, I wouldn't really like to say a bubble, although part of it, I'm really sure we will soon enough find out that there is a bubble within the bubble. But there are so many companies and potential partners who already jumped on the way of AI, whether it's L'Oreal, whether it's a masterclass experimenting with our AI interactive tutors, or whether it's Mattel cooperating with OpenAI, if I'm not mistaken. These are people with massive platforms and with highly valuable IP. And on the other hand, you have a new trend of the lawsuits, famously now Disney and other studios. But these lawsuits are not against text to video tools, if I'm not mistaken, but text to image mainly, which is also interesting, perhaps sign. Perhaps you do not want to sue someone who you want to cut a deal with later on. So I was wondering, what is your take on it, Stan? Whether you see more potential for use of AI in highly commercial content, such as advertising, such as educational audiovisual content, or whether there is space for, let's say, higher artistic features as well. And what is the difference, perhaps? Thank you.
Sure. I have to kind of make my own faith position very clear, and if you will. Um, I am not an evangelist, and I am not in the salary of a particular or a group of AI companies. I'm a very big industry pragmatist, and trying to kind of again find ways how we can keep our unique ecosystem here going. First of all, I think we, as an industry and specifically in the film industry, and I have worked as a producer and the VFX supervisor for in my earlier career for quite a while. We first have to basically build a language and understand what we are talking about. And these are pretty different types of conversations. If we, for example, talk about monetization and data sets, we talk about visual generation, and we talk about applications in AI, for example, for European feature film or TV series. They are all connected because of the fact that they are ultimately connected to some type of a paradigm or a domain, but ultimately the ups and downs and the pluses and the minuses are completely different. And we need to be very clear of what we are talking about. And some problems concern some stakeholders, and some problems don't concern other stakeholders. So I would kind of first of all say that generally a training problem doesn't concern an independent production house if the production house don't have any types of assets that they want to be trained on, or they want to have that they want to have exploitation or money making on. It's a bit more nuanced, but I'll come to that. So in a way of saying that you don't need to worry about it. This is for, there's many other problems you need to solve in the first round. And so don't judge the whole AI discussion about the way of what you see is happening in the domain. Yes, they are shaping the paradigms, but I would say that the conversation is akin to a state of co-production agreements, right? You know that they are there, they regulate co-productions between countries, but you need to have an understanding or a capability to read them, but not, wake up every morning and concern about Estonian and Czech co-production agreements. So let's kind of start from that basis. So number two, there is, I would say there are like geographical differences and very pragmatic differences what are going on. And some of it we also tackle our own mini MBA. So we also have to kind of understand that it all basically comes down to copyright. And the copyright, and Veronica, you are much of a more lawyer specialist than I am. But we have to kind of understand that in the US, if you are engaging with film industry, this is primarily work for hire, and you will give your rights, or you will possess rights of someone else in the particular ecosystem, which then also what we can also deduct from there is that if all these rights, and specifically creative rights and monetization rights, aggregate with studios in a present environment where they are putting a lot of emphasis in a kind of a free market economy into training, a lot of solutions, both commercial and otherwise, are popping up. And what we definitely see is that in the United States, and I'm so sorry to tell you, like according to my own numbers, at least publicly, they have committed more than $1 trillion in the next few years into building different types of AI models and tools. So the implementation will be very fast and very large scale. Is that uniformly good? Of course not. Of course not, because what will happen is that a lot of things will break, and it will primarily break in news media, for fact media, and etc. Technologically, they might be really good, but the social impact of them might be quite wobbly and or quite, I would say, complex. And I guess in Europe, we have an opportunity to either respond or build another type of an ecosystem, or if you wish so. So things are going to go in very fast. What we definitely see is that in advertising production, and I'll show you a couple of examples, I can say that it's going to hit in very, very big time, both in terms of delivery of vinyl content, as well as planning inside of agencies. So a lot of agencies are training their own models right now, especially for storyboard and to develop assets for brands. And the aim there is not to take the creative's work, but again to basically build things faster and iterate things faster and come to better, concepts and ideas. It's the famous Lionsgate and Runway deal. where the risks of financing films is so high that the idea for Lionsgate, and I truly believe in it, is to basically get very fast what I would call a production grade mood board in order to alleviate risks in the later stages of financing. And I had a very wonderful case from one of my own class participants in Copenhagen, where it's a small genre production company, and they started training their own models in order to basically deliver as good as it gets visual material about the vision of their directors in order to get funded. So remember, like only a year ago, when we went to pitch in a co-production market, we would cut from other people's films like slices and put them together, to show what the mood board is. And now we really have an opportunity to go and with already existing tools like VO and etc. just deliver shots and the visual quality what directors want to do. So in that capacity, we already see that this type of monetization value provision is coming on two places. Now to the training point, what I wanted to say is I personally don't have an opinion, or let's say I don't have a preference. But what I can also already tell is that this training and payment problem is going to be solved very, very fast. I think this year we'll have a couple of court cases, and these will define how the things will go. But clearly, again, the United States is going to be pro fair use, which roughly says is that yes, you can use data sets for training, but there needs to be some type of compensation later in whatever types of ways. I think that the avenues what we will see in Europe is the following. Number one, there will be tools where prompts will be copyrighted, which basically means is that since a prompt is like directing a camera or writing a script, you could actually copyright your prompt. And great prompts are like two A4 pages and etc. I can show you a few later if you want, right? So prompt is your creative work. You can copyright your prompt, right? And that prompt basically gets to a certain type of an output. Number two, there will be also platforms where the data sets are so large and it's impossible to track every single image or shot that goes in, that you would basically pay by output. And this is the famous like a USB stick tax, right? Which we have in every other countries, that when we buy a USB stick, then parts of that stick will be taxed and it will go to a collective authors union and all the creators in an ecosystem get paid. That's number two. And then number three basically is paying for data sets where you as a production company have, I don't know, a library of films which you don't monetize, and someone says, okay, I want to buy them, to train our models, and then you can basically name a price of what you want that data to be trained. And I can already say that there are companies out there who will pay for those data sets, and we had been approached by several in Cannes. Unfortunately, because of travel issues, they didn't make there, but I really encourage to start talking to these companies because I think there is really a benefit. And if you are a first mover, you define the price. So in that way, again, we're quite fast getting into some type of a maturation practice or a peace deal, if you will, around that issue of paying for the data as well.
Okay, thank you very much then. So in the EU, there are a lot of complex legal implications related to these business models, but as far I'm concerned, the library for training is beginning to be established by many rights holders. The market still needs to settle down, as I see it. There's no, let's say, universal asking price now that would be settled, and then again, it very much depends on the laws. As you described, the discrepancy between the US and EU, although we have some standardization which is global throughout the international agreements. What I would like to point out is interesting way of use of AI, not generative AI, but within the film industry. I'm sure you are familiar with assisting tools such as use of Firefly research, following or tracking the movement of eyes of testing groups of viewers, trying to figure out basically how to stage the scene or what should be included to generate more interest and compete with the additional content and the small screens, meaning, let's say, the petty content on other media. And also there are companies heavily supported, such as Largo AI, who can assist filmmakers already in the development to assess the economical potential of the future work. And I would like to know, Stan, how do you see this new group of AI tools, and whether you perhaps can have been discussing whether this is something that should be somehow discussed deeper about in relation to movies which are entering the competition, or whether this is just a natural development and evolvement of the industry in light of attention.
So may I clarify? You mean like films which are using AI tools can be accepted into competitions or not?
I do mean, well, that's an interesting take on it. If you see it generally as AI, no matter what, if generative AI or let's say technical or let's say personalization tools, or tailoring to audience appetite.
Okay. So this is a very, very good question, and I'll show it a little bit more in my slides as well. And I always come kind of as a sort of a seasoned McLuhanist. I try to come down to the point of what exactly is a poor point, what exactly is the situation in the marketplace, and then what we can kind of do about it. And roughly speaking, last year there were 2,514, excuse me, 2013, where the latest data comes from. There was 2,514 feature-length feature films and documentaries produced in Europe. And basically, out of these films, only 41 films had internationally more than 1 million 1 million viewers internationally. So basically, that means 2,400 something films had less than 1 million viewers internationally. So what does it say about the state of our industry's problem? And the problem of our industry is not the problem of generating more content. It's the problem of reaching an audience. And this problem is extremely acute. And I have witnessed it because there is so much competition. I'll give you some other numbers too. So the average day of an European and an American with media and technology is 32 hours per like 124-hour cycle. And you might ask, okay, how does 32 hours fit into 24 hours? And of course, the answer is multitasking. We watch streaming and we text with our friends, and TV is playing and we're listening to podcasts and to my own demise, I think also the culture of watching films is also changing in a way, because everyone wants to grab their phone every 15 minutes to search, who was the character and what was the star and who was the DOP and when it was produced and, and et cetera and et cetera. So ultimately, as a kind of a pragmatist as I am, I think, all kinds of tools that help us to better understand an audience and reach an audience should be embraced very fast. Now, one of the things what we found out, and this is pretty much a call to arms for you if you are a producer. And by the way, I'm not now endorsing any types of European companies, but I'll make you an example. So at our Krishna project, what we did was that we ran some pilots with the European very well-known producers on using AI and virtual production in the past year. Pretty known producers across Europe, including one of Lucas Dont or ex-producer of Lucas Dont and so forth. And what we basically found out was that a lot of the producers kind of complained that, if we play with AI tools, the results are not exactly like reflecting what the state of our market is, and there's a bit of hallucinations, and maybe these estimates, on audience building and financial simulation building and etc. are so accurate. which is, by the way, true. But also the reason is that the producers are not contributing any data to these models. So where you are then at the same time is a bit of a stupid problem. You want to have a really great outcome from an AI tool, but you don't give it any information. So basically you want to drive a Ferrari, but you're not putting any gas into the tank. So I think, and here's really an, important sort of things to consider. I think what we really need to reassess in this situation where our biggest currency is audience, we have so much competition around the audience. Dear Lord, YouTube has 2.83 billion monthly customers. It's 1/3 of, the world's population watching YouTube every day. So if the competition is so fierce, we need to really get into some type of a new environment with European players or any other players that we want to tag along with, is saying like, all right, what can we contribute in terms of our data in order to train better models, in effect, to better understand what the audience is doing and how we can better sell and monetize. So sorry, it was a bit of a long answer to your question, but I think it outlined at least a very acute problem. So the data, so the technology and the data and the filmmaker are all kind of inadvertently tied together. And if we want better tools that are better nuanced to our industry, whether in Czech Republic or in Estonia and elsewhere, we need to move really fast to collectively solve this. And ultimately, the festivals themselves are also struggling. We see that for many festivals, the audience is the question. And if we are able to, how can I say, tie the very good screen capacity or the screen excellence with very powerful data-driven tools to really understand perhaps how can we tailor a better experience rather than purely a content. And I think I'm alluding a little bit to the presentation of Frankfurt Book Fair this morning, where they say this, that audiences are turning from consumers to fans. Then if we can somehow better catalyze that fan experience, it's the best for everyone.
Oh yeah, great. Thank you very much for the last remarks then, because that's one of the usual arguments, that synthetic content or synthetic characters cannot really build a fan base, whether it will be true for the future generations or young audience. That's that remains a question. But
yeah, and there are some virtual influencers out there. It's whether Lil Michaela or anyone else, but right now we for a variety of reasons, we are at the moment where, how can I say this? The AI can help to scale that IP, but it is rather unable to build that great IP. You still need a human great storytelling and understanding in order to do that. And I see it from Lego. I see it from many other places as well.
Thanks, Dan. So before we jump to your presentation, I would like to share a few terms that, in my personal view, will be key for filmmakers in respect to use of AI. That would be perhaps establishment of some internal or personal guidelines. How do we want to use the tools? Which tools? Who will use them for us? And to what extent? How do we share our know-how? Contractual issues, not only copyright clearance, but basically legal clearance of works that are used for audiovisual works might be important as well. And then perhaps education about the trends, about the technological parts, and about how we communicate transparently and fairly use of AI. And the responsible AI is now term mainly related to big corporations, and not only tech industry, but big corporations. They use AI, they want to use it responsibly. That's the whole ecosystem around that. But my perspective is that it's equally important for the filmmakers, not only because you have great responsibility to society, but also because you have great responsibility to the craft and art of filmmaking as such. And there's still the money we have to think about. So let's not forget about that, please. Not for a second, because festivals need their sponsors. You need to find the money for the works. So thank you very much, Stan, and I will be looking forward to your presentation now.
Yeah, super. Let me just open it up. I hope you can see my presentation. So I put together something akin 20 slides of bringing together what we have learned in Cannes and elsewhere within a year. And I'd really like to start with a quote from Richard Feynman, who's a very famous theoretical physicist, and he's just had some really fantastic thoughts about science and the state of science and on-take of new technologies. But he said very beautifully that nobody ever figures out what life is all about, and it doesn't matter. Explore the world, nearly everything is really interesting if you go into deeply enough. And I think that's quite pertinent for AI as well, because we have a desire to understand every nut and bolt, but I'm not sure that if anyone ever figures out fully what AI is all about, but it kind of doesn't matter. I think we have to be very bold. We have to explore the world, and you have a lot of keen interest in order to go deeply into enough, because it's not the technology, it's the creativity. And as I said before, AI right now is sort of like a DV cam, and I'm this kind of a film school kid of the 90s, and of course, when DV cam came, the quality wasn't even comparable to 16 millimeter, but it was portable, it was cheap, and we could make some new types of very powerful art and films such as 28 Days Later or Dancer in the Dark, which by Lars von Trier, which was shot on DV cam, but the one and only Robbie Mueller tamed the technology and went to spark the whole digital and HD revolution that came later. And as an audience, it actually didn't matter. So as Veronica said, I am a creative technologist and a technological creative. I had a digital summit for our prime minister, running the Cannes Next, and in my own company, Storytech, we do all kinds of exciting things around creativity and technology. I produced 8 feature-length films and documentaries together, and with Kreshina, we do a lot of beneficial research for film industry professionals such as you, and we publish it on a frequent basis. And when it comes to AI, I was recently doing our first mini MBA in generative AI at the National Film School of Denmark. The second program will launch hopefully either at the end of the year or in January. So if you want to join, get in touch, and we'd be very happy to have you. But ultimately, I spend about 2/3 of my work time either researching, thinking, educating, curating, or advising about generative and other types of AI for the creative film and technology ecosystem. And again, as I said in the morning, I think understanding how fast AI is coming into this space, I really kind of found myself from a perspective that rather than complaining or asking every day that AI cannot produce a feature quality film, or it's not Alexa quality, or this or that, and etc. I think rather than asking what it cannot do right now, maybe we can all flip the coin and ask, hey, what it can really do right now for us, especially when we are independent filmmakers and we are very resource strapped. So Benedict Evans, who is a very famous industry analyst, benedictevans.com, he puts out an annual presentation, and this year it's around generative AI. And what he argues is that although we don't know the end of this journey, the kind of evolution or revolution, if you will, around AI will be similar into the other types of technological major shifts what we've seen right now. So, well, in the 80s and 90s, we were all on computers and PCs, which very profoundly transformed the way how we edit, mix, and do VFX or even communicate with with our friends and family. Well, the 2000s were the era of the internet, and again that brought us not only global audiences but also streaming. And of course, the last decade more or less have been about smartphones and the transition of audiences from bigger screens into small screens. So generative AI or AI in general will bring us a similar type of a shift. And what's really useful about Benedict Evans' presentation is the fact that he also helps us to set some of the questions what you may ask yourself. So, of course, one question is how far or how fast this technology will evolve. And in that respect, we are there between two paradigms. There's all of these talks of superintelligence and AGI and what if not, where one computer controls everything. But in many cases with the AI, we're just talking about new forms and new tools and new forms of platforms. So it's just, to kind of balance out this sphere of Skynet, we can also kind of deal with it, understanding that it's just ultimately more software just doing very powerful and specific things. On one hand, we have a lot of hype around the idea that, oh, this technology will come and transform humanity. I will not be so far-fetched. But in reality, right now, we are in a kind of a moment where we're building models, aka comparable. We're building like VFX or camera or post-production workflows that you're all ultimately very familiar with. But what is really interesting and what is very what is very true and unprecedented right now is the fact that this industry is seeing a massive investment on the scale we've never seen before. And Veronica, I wanted to tell that before when you asked about the differences between Europe and the US. I think Meta is investing about 60 million euro per month into AI development. So per month. So it's almost a billion. A little bit under $1 billion per year. So we start understanding how much money is going into this industry. And obviously that pushes it all ahead. That also means in many ways that all of these tools are getting better and cheaper. And finally, they are ultimately becoming commodities. Like you would launch Photoshop or Premiere or, Final Cut Pro or whatever. This is exactly what's going to happen in this marketplace. There's going to be a lot of tools. And what we kind of roughly see is that we have sort of 4 big pockets of new businesses emerging. Either you're building a hardware platform, such as NVIDIA does, make it the commodity like AI for everyone and totally cheap cost in a cloud. That's Amazon or Meta. You can sell more technical APIs, either you're Amazon or Google, or you can put it into your phone, where it's a feature for every single customer. And I think TikTok and CapCut are really interesting examples on this. And that type of modeling is coming into film industry as well. And all of these tools, Runway, 11 Labs, Leonardo, Black Forest Labs, and etc. They're all heading that way. And in many cases, I think the paradox is that we're quite fine if these features are being launched in our everyday tools, whether they are from Adobe, Blackmagic, Apple, or anyone else, or Avid. But we're quite concerned when they come from startups. So I guess we need to have a bit of a more critical eye how we formulate our opinions. But if you missed my morning's talk, then within a year we've come a pretty long way. And if last year we only talked about Sora, then right now there's hundreds, if thousands of customized tools out there and updates weekly. I think what's a really great benchmark that Curious Refuge has trained more than 4,000 people from 171 countries, which is massive. We have already feature-length films with mixed workflows, such as About a Hero, which also plays here at Carlo Vivari, and go and talk to Piotr. I think his process, both the process of Piotr and Mats about making this film is very, very fascinating because they were quite pioneering to use that technology. We see also mixed films such as Antrastrap, produced by David Aronofsky at Tribeca. And we really see these native studios, either Promise, Verena Boom's own studio, or some others, emerging very fast, especially in the United States. And if you haven't read the SAG guideline, please do, because it's a great guideline. And not only now there's the first AI film with SAG guideline, the Echo Hunter, but it's really becoming a kind of a de facto document how people can work around AI safely and in relatively fair compensation. But what I wanted to tell now is that what has been a really big surprise for me is that the AI is kicking in unexpected places. And this was all about the workflows, what we experienced and what we're presented as a graduate work from our mini MBA in Copenhagen. But to kind of show how far things have gone, has anyone seen this Liquid Death commercial yet? Okay, if anyone has seen this commercial, please raise your hand. So
yes, here.
Okay, couple of yes. So how many yes and how many no? 2 yes.
I guess 4 or 5.
Okay, and it's about 10 no. So all right, let's play this.
Good afternoon, son. Want to take a guess why I pulled you over? Oh, it's not what you think. It's Liquid Death. There's sparkling mountain water. Wow, you weren't kidding. That is refreshing. But it's not why I pulled you over.
Oh boy. Is it the busted taillight?
Nuh-uh. Is it because of the license plate? Nope.
Shit, man, it's the dead guy, right?
No, sir.
Is it the human trafficking, perhaps?
Uh-uh.
Man, is it the truck thing?
I don't think so.
Well, what is it then? The robbery?
No.
The bumper sticker?
No.
It's the roadkill, isn't it?
Haven't heard of it.
The chemical waste?
Nuh-uh.
Is it the roller coaster seat? Is it the cult thing?
Absolutely not. Hell no.
All right, I give up. What is it?
It's because it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Kevin. Dad, you remembered. Happy birthday to you.
You're the best dad ever.
Happy birthday to you.
So things have kind of come pretty far in summer 2025. So what we've kind of seen out of use cases is really fascinating hyper growth of tools, and there's a kind of a micro tool for everything, and there will be significantly more. What is very, very important for you as a filmmaker is that you need to really appoint some type of a person who's an AI tracker. I don't have a better position for that, but somebody who kind of keeps a table or a kind of an update on tools. Update on tools on what the quality updates are and how they work, because the cycles are so fast that models are improving by weeks, and then if they do an improvement in one end, then they will kind of fall apart in another one. So I've seen on many professional studios that you actually keep an Excel sheet of understanding how much things cost, what is the quality comparison, and for which type of workflow the tools are available. And what I also said is that the problem for us in Europe is that the tools are and will be stratified, aka Webo is a good example. It was available in US, but took quite a while to get here. So we have to lobby very fast the big studios that we can get access to them, because we are totally at the disadvantage. What was spoken in Cannes by a lot of smarter people than me, or people affiliated with some of the big tool building, is that technically we can make a feature film. That's not a problem. I know that there was one feature film around Cannes. It wasn't in the festival finally. I don't know for what types of reasons, but it was from a very known director, produced on a very high quality, and there are several in the works. So technically we can do it. Is it good enough? That's a question, but the estimates, for example, from Matthew Loran from Google is about a few years where we are there. AI native studios powered by filmmakers are very easy way to get financed if you have great creativity on board, whether it's Promise or anyone else. And we talked about IP and hyper personalization. So a really interesting thing is right now is to customizing existing IP, especially on kids animation or kids IP, to personalize it for a particular child, and that's technologically totally possible. And multimodality, where you can kind of prompt audio, video, or things together, or operate with different types of AI tools in one environment. It's already arrived on its early stage. Think about flora and fauna and some other things. And especially for professional workflows, we see that there are these really interesting new positions or skills that you need. For example, you need AI colorists. What that basically means is you need a colorist who knows how to grade in one timeline, let's say a Sora video output, a Vevo video output, a Hilo video output, and something else. So like you would have a kind of a classical camera stock colorist, you need an AI colorist. You need also an AI workflow provider, coordinator, and etc. And with copyright already, there's two really important tips I would like to give you. Number one, if you want to work with scripts and models, don't upload your full script. Basically write a kind of a treatment of your script, copyright it, and then put it into the model, because then you have the copyright. Then you retain the copyright, right? And the second one is keep a log. If you're using AI tools in your production, there's already legal precedents where if you basically have a log where it says, okay, for shot number 57, this is my prompt, this is the tool what I used, and this is sort of the the output. You can basically copyright that, which means is that the copyright problem is also solved. And I've seen again in different studios, usually on Google Sheets and elsewhere, where you would have a tracking system for your AI shots, not akin to managing a VFX pipeline. So that's a pure way how to do it professionally. You might be familiar with Promise, but I'm not sure if anyone knows flora and fauna. So this is
Hey everyone, Weber here.
So this is quite fascinating thing. What we kind of now see. How many of you know Flora? No one. So this is a kind of the coolest trend what's going on right now. Flora and fauna is like a web-based environment where you can bring different types of models together. So you don't need to basically pay a subscription to, say ChatGPT and then Claude, and then you pay something for Hilo, or then Minimac, for Flux and etc. And what it does is that it helps you to link together different types of models and different types of outputs. So what you can, for example, do is that you can write one prompt and you can test 10 models at the same time how the visual output would be. And this is really, really great for storyboarding, for all kinds of things. You can create images and videos in one place. It's all basically tied into one environment. Pretty easy to learn, but absolutely fantastic, where this already starts looking like a professional's toolbox. Now, coming to the monetization, we also see that, especially on children's animation and children's content, there's a lot of really fantastic innovation. So this is a company called the Mini Studio. It's founded by French Lebanese founders, and everything else what you see on the screen right now is fully produced with AI on that type of fidelity. They are able to produce about 10 minutes of broadcast quality animation in 1 week, including voiceover, music, production, and then etc. European company, recently just financed out of A16 speedrun in United States. And I mean, these kinds of companies are going to come in very, very fast. And without any type of advertising, they have about 1 million audience right now online, and really are aiming to become, if not the next Pixar, then certainly the next Smurfs from Europe. It's a really interesting case. If you have a chance to see them, to talk, the team is 100% humans, in a sense of they are psychologists, composers, professional screenwriters, as well as animators, but they just built a custom pipeline in order to get to this type of result in less than a week, which is quite unprecedented. And Veronica, when you asked about the way of selling and buying data or building your own models, Perfection 42 is a Lithuanian company that basically helps. They're primarily in advertising, but bridging out to cinema right now as well. And they are able to build your own LLMs basically on your own data. So imagine your own ChatGPT fully in your own cloud, or in your own capacity, and just tailored for these use cases what you have. And their kind of ultimate aim is to build a model that is able to produce something akin to the famous animation film Vincent. So, altogether, 4 key trends. We have from single kind of AI prompt artists, we're now moving into AI studio directors. We're going into workflows where we kind of prompt first and then write the scripts. Tools are already there, and what I would kind of encourage you to think about is that it's not purely AI, but it's something combined. So what I want to show you right now is from a Spanish production company called Artefacto Films. They run training programs and lab programs, for example, with Runway, and they have also had a filming competition in Rotterdam. But it's really interesting where some artists are starting to use AI to build fantastic artistic work. This is a trailer for a documentary that explores the journey of cobalt from the mines in Kenya, to our mobile phones, and ultimately back to the scrap yards in Africa. And there would have been no way of making these films without the help of AI, both in terms of resources as well as its creative output. So, it's not only generic content, but a lot of really powerful creative work can be produced as well. Now, if you talk about some other major use cases, what we saw, at least in my cohort, was that, yes, advertising, and more advertising, and there's, whether it's Liquid Death or Coca-Cola and etc. This is where it's kicking very fast time. Everything around pitching, stolen or borrowed mood boards, you are already able to generate pretty good proofs of concept for your own directors. And especially in the genre film industry, this is taking on pretty big times. We also see short film challenges. For example, the Norwegian Film Institute has a challenge where they're funding every year X amount of short films around the similar concept with different types of directors to use AI to see how the technology can be pushed forward. Animation, as I said, based on Mini Studio, the workflows are moving pretty fast and the time optimizations are incredible. And for IP or scaling, especially with synthetic voice, that's already a pretty established domain, especially after Emilia Perez and Brutalist. And what I also spoke in the morning, a fantastic case was where like AI tools are coming into editing, and you can generate an amount of shots within a day, or maximum few days, something that used to take for a month. And even in writer's room, especially when you work for serialized content or TV series, you want to use an LLM in order to understand, for example, what happened before. And last but not least, the festival barrier is also kind of broken in a sense that there's not been too much buzz about AI films in festivals, whether they're Tribeca, Rotterdam, the Bifan festival that takes place right now in Korea. And I'm sure that an AI film will be soon in Karlovy Vary and Cannes and elsewhere. So finally, my kind of recommendation and understanding that we're running out of time is that I would basically say that, don't get too stuck on tools. What we definitely need is to have skills in order to manage these tools. And this whole hypothesis of our industry was that, hey, like if you produce more content, we have more reach and more audience. But in reality, and as Ezra Eman, a dear friend and the chief innovation officer at NPO has beautifully drawn, is that technically we are in a moment of endless creation where like there's so much content out there that and there's so easy to create more. We have endless distribution, either locally by streamers, by free of charge platforms anywhere else. But what is the problem is the one here, right? We have only 24 hours to consume the content. So how do we actually address that? 2,500 feature films produced, but only 41 over the million mark. So clearly we have this kind of a content quality versus quality problems. And Sami Arpa from Largo Film actually estimates that we'll probably see 100 times growth of content in the next 5 years, which means is that there will be even more. So what we really need to understand at this moment as producers is our audiences are not anymore in a passive consumption era. What they really want is an experience. And we don't have time to talk about that more, but what you need to start asking yourself as a producer is it's not anymore building a singular story, financing and producing it in, 3 or 4 or 5 years. But you really need to start to have a different type of a thinking where the production is quite democratized or at least challenged. You have to start thinking about your IP, branding, talent, story reach, distribution, editorial voices, authenticity, what types of bold choices in terms of values or statements your film or TV series has. Do you have a really direct relationship with your audience? Because they are primarily on summer platforms, or if you want to bring them into cinema, how do you bring them? And AI is really part of that, I would say, a web of questions as well. And let me also remind you that we're on like day 2 of AI. It's less than 2 years when these technologies have been with us publicly, and we are here in a kind of a tool era. And maybe next year and the year later, we'll just have an extraordinary tsunami of really, really bad content. But after that, we'll start formulating, hopefully, a kind of a group of storytellers who know how to harness technology, put our traditional stories and empower them with the technology. And then probably in a half a decade, we are in a point where it really doesn't matter how AI is used. So ultimately, in this hyper-competitive environment, your choice is not to fund more content, but it's really funding highly skilled storytellers and film professionals that know how to use these tools. And my 3 kind of commandments are, first of all, have an AI strategy. Your AI strategy might be even saying that, okay, by 6 months, we just have developed a rudimentary vocabulary around AI. You don't need to be a super prompter. But if you don't have a strategy, you're certainly disadvantaged. Number two, you have to be quite realistic on where it can deliver. So, don't expect a feature film quality production. But for example, think about how, it can help you with certain types of VFX, maybe a project pitch, understanding how funding systems work, optimizing your screenwriter's time, and etc. These are already places that help us to save money and time and help you to focus on more beneficial work. And finally, it's really hard to find great talent. The talent problem is exactly the same in AI industry, whereas in the film industry. So try to nurture great talent and skills, and if you find them, and if you cultivate that mindset, you're certainly in a much more advanced position. And finally, if I started with Richard Feynman, I'd like to also close with him. And he very beautifully said, what do I advise? And what would I advise? Don't be afraid. Do what you get the most pleasure from, and then go doing things like that. And develop your talents wherever they may lead. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. And I certainly think that damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead also with AI. Thank you very much. If you want to get in touch, grab a snap of my QR code. Happy to answer your questions and stay in touch in LinkedIn and elsewhere.
Okay, thank you very much, Stan, and thank you all for staying with us, although we really are running late by 10 minutes. So have a great rest of the afternoon, and as Stan said, please, let's get in touch with us. You can find me on LinkedIn, Stan, as well, and he has the QR code to his company as well. So enjoy the rest of the festival, and we'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you. Bye.